No telling what the fates may have in store for us, Hail. Tell me you killed the bastard. Drove your staff into his wretched skull, slid a dagger in his gut. Not that he'd die from that. Works on mortals, though.
I've nothing to report, Odysseus. Not yet.
Well, you'll get him next time, I reckon.
Death to Chronos, sir.
You'll get him yet. Up and about? Our good witch there knows you've a mountain of a journey ahead of you, goddess. You hear about our mountains on the surface? Big, tall rocks?
What, do you mean, like Mount Olympus or Mount Othrys? Of course I've heard of them. They reach up to the sky. I can only imagine.
You look up from the base to the peak, you'll swear they can't be climbed. But if you only concern yourself with making that next step, you'll make it to the top.
To the top?
We've multiple reports the armies of Chronos are massing on the surface up there, and not yet caught wind of your efforts. At least you aren't contending with them, eh?
My route through the underworld is fraught in its own right, but yes, it's comforting to know that army of traitors remains ignorant of me.
There's not a downward route that's more discreet. Those thorny chaps in the woods, they've no love for Chronos either, at least.
I'll get past them.
Nemesis has been in an especially foul mood of late. Anything I should know about?
I was going to ask you the same. She sought my task, but that's nothing new. Though she's been clashing with Headmistress more and more.
Shame it's been this way. Personally, I'd rather have divine retribution with me than against. I reckon you can't just smooth things over with her, can you?
I have my doubts.
Evening, I think. You be wary of the sorts you meet out there, all right? You find a live one gives you any trouble, you know where to hit them where it hurts.
I most certainly do. Death to Chronos, sir.
He'll get his. You run into anything bad whilst you're out there, you come talk to me about it. Chances are I've seen it, fought it, otherwise gotten past it, and can offer some advice.
Definitely. Inquiry for you, Odd. When was the last reported sighting of a root stalker out in the woods?
See, that's the sort of inquiry I'd expect from somebody who sighted a root stalker out in the woods very, very recently. So there's still something rotten in Erebus, then?
Unfortunately, yes.
What was the source of your misfortune that you're back with such a scowl? Some whalers or caskets, perhaps? Oh, shadow spiller.
Yes, a shadow spiller. I lost my way against one. Can hardly see a thing when they're about. I should be stronger than this.
You've strength enough. They merely test your nerve. Foes such as that are to be faced head-on, no hesitation. Set for another go.
I am. May moonlight guide you.
And you as well. A moment, goddess. With your Olympus-dwelling relatives assisting you, I've half a mind to ask you to let them know I'm on your side, except not all of them love me.
What? But you're the Great Tactician, Odysseus. Even the gods were impressed with your machinations in your glory days.
Lady Athena and others favored me, it's true, but your Uncle Poseidon, well, I got on his bad side, I believe. Maybe he's let it go after all this time, but that's a risk I'm not prepared to take. So keep quiet about me, would you?
I hear you.
Goddess.
You've known Headmistress quite a while, haven't you? Where did you meet? I always wanted to ask.
Well, all I can say is that I was alone. At the end of one life and the start of another. Lost. She appeared before me then in all her splendor, and she revealed to me a path I hadn't seen.
That all sounds very figurative. Were you already dead?
I was. She told me she could grant me a new life. She needed a tactician knowledgeable of the surface. I thought, who am I to turn a goddess down? I followed her. It's been a while now.
A good while, I'm sure.
Evening, I think.
Wanted to say, I appreciate your counsel, Odysseus. You've been like a brother to me. Or an uncle? One of those. You'd know better than I.
Look, you don't have to tell me what it's like not having a family about. I spent a good-sized portion of my mortal days away from home. Had a war to fight. Got a little sidetracked after.
Sidetracked? Headmistress says that you spent many years at sea. Some of them in the company of goddesses at that.
Yes, well, by the time I finally returned, I hardly recognized my son and my wife. We lived out our mortal days together, and that was enough. I reckon they're comfortable somewhere below.
You haven't seen them? What happened?
Penelope and I drifted apart. Happens with mortals sometimes. And it happens with shades, too. As for my son Telemachus, he's his own man. Such is life. Or death, as it turns out.
Yes.
A moment, goddess.
You asked before about how I managed it. The pressure to always prevail through what, in retrospect, were many terribly exciting scenarios, all whilst bearing the burden of so many others' expectations and my own.
You said you always believed there was a solution, a positive outcome that could be discovered and achieved. I've been thinking about that.
Good. But it occurred to me there's something else. 'Twas love that drove me on. The great war that earned me my place in Elysium. I wanted desperately not to go. To stay with my wife and then newborn son.
You were left with no choice but to fight. So you held to hope that someday you'd see your family again.
Sound familiar, does it?
May moonlight guide you.
And you as well.
The tactician brings ill tidings with an optimistic bent. Fine. And what news from the men of the Isles, if any yet survive?
According to my confidants, they've all sworn in with Chronos, I'm afraid. Mortals, they often want whatever they don't have. Another golden age in this case. The promise of one.
'Tis a lie that spares their betrayal rather than a promise. They shall perish then, by the wrath of the gods.
And then their wretched souls shall hound us with renewed vengefulness. I've witnessed endless wars before, madam. So have you gods. How can we stop this?
We cannot. Melinoi, however. Certainly you can, correct?
I can and shall.
And, that's the end of my report this time, madam. Should you have any questions, please don't hesitate to summon me at any time.
I shan't, Odysseus. Although there is one further matter that I wanted to discuss with you, and rather quietly.
Certainly, madam. Well, I'm saying that the possibility exists, yes. Eternal vigilance is near impossible. Enemies have always exploited the lack thereof. I ever tell you of the old wooden horse trick?
The old wooden horse trick, yeah. Surely your reputation as the Great Tactician hinges on more than this one tale?
Ah, but classics ought to be retold. Though, if you'd rather, I have far more tales of trickery and valor. Take the Cave of the Cyclops.
Not Cave of the Cyclops.
You ever seen Hypnos so much as shift in his sleep, Odd? I know he's been through a lot, but still.
Can't say I have. Been just that way from the night the Good Witch got him. The snoring I became accustomed to eventually.
Think he's ever going to wake? None of the incantations we've tried have had any effect.
He's sleep itself, isn't he? Evening.
Salutations.
Salutations. So Doom has come to stay with us a bit. My last and only other brush with him did not resolve particularly well, so I'll just keep my distance if that's quite all right.
All children of Nyx are welcome in these crossroads. Though I think Lord Moros wishes to keep his distance too.
No objections here.
You're back. I'm attempting to contain my enthusiasm for the venerable hero of mortal kind over there, Princess. Our adversary may be crafty, but Odysseus is renowned for his wiles above all.
It figures you would be familiar with the Great Tactician. Likely he evaded you at least once or twice in his life, if his many tales are to be believed.
Oh, they are to be believed, I can attest. To be direct with you, Master Odysseus, I am what you might call an admirer. At first, I found you extraordinarily frustrating. So adept were you at avoiding certain doom. But gradually, perhaps grudgingly, I grew very impressed.
Oh, I'm flattered and relieved to hear it. Very kind of you to let me know, particularly after all this time.
It's quite humorous, in fact. While you drew breath, I never once had opportunity to tell you.
Quite humorous indeed, my lord. I intended no offense by avoiding you. You know that, of course. A mortal impulse whilst in mortal peril.
Oh, you were a wonder to behold. There were the Lystragonian giants, Charybdis, and, lest we forget, the War of Ilium.
I never do.
So then, were you ever certain you had finally met your doom? Or did you truly think there was always a plan of escape to be discovered, no matter how dire the circumstance?
Well, to be quite frank with you, Moros, may we be informal thus? I had the hardest time untangling myself not from near-fatal situations, but the arms of certain goddesses. My greatest weakness, looking back.
Ah, indeed. But how was this a weakness? As I understand, your wife Penelope stood by your side despite your indiscretions. I trust I do not overstep. I know this can be a sensitive topic with those from the surface.
Penelope stood by my side, because I only told her so much about my indiscretions, as you call them. Then, when we reunited after death, I had to tell her the rest. She had spent her best years awaiting an unfaithful man.
I see. After everything you'd been through, did your relationship end in an amicable way at least?
Surprisingly enough, it did.
Fear me.
Have you ever even spoken with Commander Schelemeus, Dora? Or Odysseus? We have these great masters on our side who know so much of history, so much they can teach us.
History? That what they call it nowadays? Well, I don't have big plans to go to war with the rest of you anytime soon, though if I change my mind, I'll probably check in with those guys.
They're good people.
As we hold out against...
You and Commander Schelemeus both were great and famous sailors, weren't you, Odd? Did the two of you ever meet in your mortal days?
Oh, great sailor is an understatement, goddess. They say his exploits rivaled even mine. Alas, that I never once had an opportunity to witness his prowess. Oh, it must have been something.
We're fortunate to have you both. May moonlight guide us.
And may you prevail.
Let us together shine this night, O moon.
You are fortunate to learn from the wanderer Odysseus. I used to follow all his mortal struggles, from his warring to his voyages. Some of the tales about him are embellished, but not all. He is an interesting man. The choice is yours.
You'll find her yet.
Odysseus, have you seen Hecate about?
Not in a little while, little goddess. Though I'd expect that pointy hat of hers to give her away.
I'll look for it. Thank you.
Oh, she's got to be around here somewhere, little goddess. Evening, I think.
Hey, Odysseus. Got you something here I wanted you to have. for always keeping an eye out.
Goddess, your presence alone is all I could ask. Though if you're in a giving mood, then perhaps you'll accept a small gift from me in turn?
Your trusty knucklebones. Thank you. Moonlight, guide us.
We'll get through this.
Compose yourself. Blood and darkness. I can sense you've those accursed knuckle bones on you. I shall have to thank Odysseus for providing such a gift.
My keepsake? I'm surprised these have any effect on you, Headmistress. I thought for certain you enchanted them yourself.
Odysseus has known his share of witches besides us. Well, I'm braced for impact. The knucklebones strike first, and then we fight. Crossed flames burn.
I'm most grateful, Goddess, and expect to knock this back at the Taverna at the soonest opportunity.
No rush, just as long as you enjoy it when that opportunity presents itself. Death to Chronos, sir.
You'll get him yet. Goddess. Well, would you look at that? How could I possibly say no? It seems you found my weakness here, Goddess.
The Great Tactician has no weaknesses, I'm sure. Though he does now have an extra bottle of nectar.